Hello and welcome to Raising Anchor, your podcast and source for all things Rhode Island FC. I'm your host, Matt Entrican, coming to you on this Thursday, September 4th. RIFC defeats the Charleston Battery 1-0 in one of their most complete performances of the season. Are they on the road back to excellence, or will Lou City prove that this was just a moment that was a flash in the pan come this Saturday? To try this all over again and not have my mic on mute is the one and only co-host with the most, Mr. Jason Carey. Jason, how is it going, my friend?
Doing great. Glad to be back. Torn did a great job filling in for me.
Fantastic job.
So it's always nice to be able to get a vacation. I think if I look back outside of, if we don't count interviews, I think that was the first pod I've ever missed. So what, 160 episodes? So
I mean, you don't need to brag. Just like I'm not going to brag about how we have all these heroes in the chat, making sure that they know they can hear us along on the journey. This is going to be a fun night. Already with the human errors, not the technical errors that we normally experience on this wonderful podcast. Let's get straight into this and jump right into the news here. A couple of different things we want to cover. First and foremost, Koke Vegas gets named to Team of the Week this week as the USL Championship announced that the RFC goalkeeper had been named to this Team of the Week for week 26 for shutting out the league's highest scoring attack for just the third time in the regular season and extending his own club record home shutout streak to 4 games. This clean sheet was Vegas's 7th of the regular season, which is tied for 3rd in the USL Championship, and it's also the 15th clean sheet of Vegas's RIFC career. I don't even know how much that goes back when you count like his time with the Loyal. But ever since returning from an 11-game injury absence on August 6th, Vegas has made 8 saves and kept 4 shutouts. When he's between the sticks, RIFC has now kept opponents out of the back of the net for a club record 367 minutes at Centerville Bank Stadium, going more than a month without conceding a goal in front of its home fans. The honor is Vegas's 3rd of his RIFC career, and it's the 7th time a player has been named to Team of the Week this season. Jason, lots of different things to unpack here. First and foremost, does it really feel like those stats, when we talk about that pressure test, we talk about perspective last week and kind of going into this Charleston game, we know this team's good defensively, but a shutout in all of its home games in August? I didn't check the stat. I'm kind of going off the press release here, reading that verbatim. Do we feel like these match what we feel is happening on the pitch?
No, it is funny when you think about it, right? If it's like there's 2 things going on, right? Once Koke in the back is just having a great season. You almost wonder if we had him the whole time. Maybe could we have picked up a few more points?
Don't put that ick on Jackson Lee.
No, it is what it is. He deputized very well for us. But there's clearly some mojo that Vegas has that is just, really clicking this year with our defense. But then up front, we're still struggling to score goals. I mean,
well, hey, no. We're not going to talk about the front. We're gonna lavish praise right now on Koke Vegas. We're going to focus on him for a second because I want to ask you. I have no clue I don't even know how the calculations yet go. We're still looking to see if we get to do a vote this year as media. But do you think I did see at one point a little earlier, as Vegas was starting to rack up some additional clean sheets? I think he's now 2nd behind only Sacramento's Danny Vitello?
Yeah, Vidiello.
I think he's only 2nd behind him now in total clean sheets per keeper in the season. I got to ask, do we think that Koke Vegas is in serious contention for Golden Glove by the end of the year?
It's possible. I mean, the team is kind of trending in the right direction. I don't want to get out of hand because the one issue this team has is consistency, but Koke also has been kind of consistent in net there, putting up good performances. So
I agree. It'll be interesting to see. I mean, we've talked at length. We think that maybe some of this schedule ahead after these next 2 games might be some of the easiest in the league. So if you're going to build on momentum, we talk about teams getting hot at the right time coming into this final stretch of 8-ish games across the league. This is the time to do it. And if we can put one of our players and exalt them up on one of those awards, because I don't think we're getting Golden Boot or Golden Playmaker at this point. It'd be good to see a team that's so defensively sound as Rhode Island be able to accomplish something like the Golden Glove.
Absolutely. And other news here, Jojea is called up to Rwanda again. So Rhode Island FC announced Sunday that midfielder Jojea Quizera has been called up for the Rwanda Football Federation men's national team for the nation's final set of 2026 FIFA World Cup qualification games. Rwanda, who currently sit in second place in Group C of Confederation of African Football World Cup qualifying, that's a mouthful, will travel to Godswill Akpabio International Stadium to face Nigeria on September 6th. 3 days later, the Wasps will conclude CAF group stage play with a trip to Orlando Stadium in Johannesburg, South Africa, to face Zimbabwe. Quizera receives his club-leading 7th international call-up as an active RIFC player and is the only player to receive a senior call-up in 2025. I'm very excited, Quizera said. Getting to score at home during the last window and celebrate with the fans was really special. With tough opponents coming up, we know this is not going to be easy, and we are going to have to work for it. But we are extremely motivated to fight for World Cup qualification. Rwanda, currently 2 wins, 2 losses, 2 draws, is currently in second place in Group C with 8 points. With all 9 group winners automatically qualifying for the 2026 FIFA World Cup, Rwanda's final 2 group stage fixtures in September are critical as the Wasps are just 5 points removed from automatic qualification. Do you think we'll see Jojea be RFC's first World Cup player?
I don't know. I really think that, earlier on as we've been watching them through the friendlies and for the qualifiers, we've been watching this closely. Right now, South Africa does have a 5-point lead. But if Rwanda can advance through Nigeria, then that's a game versus them, right? So that's still very much within their grasp, very much in their control. I would say one credit to South Africa is they are doing a little bit better offensively. It hasn't always clicked for the Wasps this season as they've this qualifying round as they've gone through a lot of pretty much like 0-0, 1-1 draws through the rest of their group. Something that, Jojea should feel very comfortable with back here at home in Rhode Island FC. But I don't see why not. I mean, obviously with the internationals we have, unless you count Corcoran going to the U20 World Cup, yeah, I think there's a real good chance here. And I don't want to jinx it, but like, how exciting would it be? Imagine this, dude. We know that Foxborough is going to be one of the sites. Imagine not only does Quizera and Rwanda advance and they're in the World Cup, but then one of the Rwandan games is at Foxborough. We have to make sure that like every single RFC fan goes in attendance for that game. Like, I don't care if it's Rwanda versus, I don't know.
Speaking of which, did you see the news that came out about the World Cup?
How the ticket prices are starting to get ready to drop?
Well, so they announced that they're going to use, I forget the term that they use, but like flex pricing or something. So in terms of, a game like Rwanda versus, I don't know, Saudi Arabia, where obviously those fan bases will be very excited to see it, but maybe it's not going to sell out a stadium in America. They might price those tickets at a very much more reasonable price to get people in the door, as opposed to, Argentina's playing Germany. Well, you're going to have to like sell your kidneys or something just to,
both
get
of them,
nosebleed.
or just
yeah,
one?
just both of them. You might not live through the entire match, but you got to see Messi play.
I almost want to like do a, Alexa or Siri search on how long can I live without 2 kidneys? Can I just give them at the door? And then will I at least, last through 90 plus, injury time, or will I only make it to the half?
Or like, yeah, one to start and second at halftime.
Terrible. Like I didn't realize at the time, and this is an interesting part talking about Quizera. And I do like that flex pricing, by the way, because I think we've talked about it. I think every soccer fan is starting to make plans about like, what are they going to do when the World Cup rolls around? Not all of us were into the game. Not all of us were born when the last one rolled through. We've been very upfront that we'd like to go to each of the countries but not see one of the host countries' games because we know that those are going to be pretty much out of reach. But then, yeah, like go see a Saudi Arabia versus, Cameroon or Morocco, just something.
Any of the like, lower attended games, just it would probably be a vibe.
Right. And then strategically set up so that we're at like watch parties or bars for the big games, especially the American, Mexican, and Canadian games. I think it's gonna be funny the way I don't mind. I don't know what flex pricing would consider an appropriate price for one of those matches, because I've heard what they're going to be charging for the host city matches is going to be, like you said, double kidney kind of costs. But I'm still going to go, especially with Foxborough being 25 minutes away on a good Washington Bridge day. Why not? Right? Why not? But I do want to ask this question because we didn't talk about this at length at the time. I don't think we realized where this would line up. And I do want to mention something that's really interesting. One, we have Corcoran now out. He's already for the U.S. men's national team under 20s. But now Jojea Quizera. We knew when we looked at the FIFA international calendar and these games, we knew earlier in the season that he would not be available. We weren't sure if it would be both the Charleston game and the Lou City game, being how important these would probably be and how difficult these matches would be. Is very similar to how we lost Jojea last year at the Charleston match. You know what we didn't factor in? We didn't factor in that if we advanced through the Jägermeister Cup, that this would be a situation where we now have a game that's a elimination match in the middle of an international break. We don't have one of our players. If this was last year, I would say he was one of our best players. He's fallen off a little bit this season, sure, but he's still a major contributor. We don't have one of our best players available in an elimination format match. I'm normally really nice about things. Everyone, we always get told we pander. But the fact that there was this level of oversight of a miss when it comes to scheduling a tournament game in the middle of an international break, this league, USL, you have to do better. If you want this Jägermeister Cup to mean something as we advance the league, as we grow it, with Pro Rail and Division 1, you have to make sure this doesn't happen again. This is a major mistake. This is a major misstep. You cannot have a tournament where there's hardware, there's money on the line, and then, we're one of 4 teams left, and I think we're the only team that actually has international call-ups. There's plenty of others around the league, but for the teams that are remaining, I think we're the only one. It's a really bad look. It's bad optics, and it's a bad feeling to know that we are going to be a little bit more hamstrung on our options because we didn't plan that this game should have been one additional week earlier or one additional week later. It's really bad, and USL has to do better. They have to do better on that.
It is frustrating. We as we quickly look to the future with Pro Rail looming, you think there's a lot of growth opportunity for the league. And at that point, you could maybe get more and more internationals. And then at that point, I think they really will have to make some better scheduling decisions at that point. I think, unfortunately, at this point, there's how many internationals do we actually have? And then just, you're not wrong. I think that they're just looking at it and saying, they think it's not a big deal, or just kind of brushing it aside to a certain extent.
Well, I'm saying it's a big deal now. So if for some reason we don't win this Sacramento match, we get to blame the president of competitions and format, which may or may not be a former Rhode Island FC president. So looking at you, Brett, looking at you. Any hoozle, let's get into this recap against Charles. Do you have anything else for the World Cup or
no?
All right, let's get into this recap of the RIFC versus Charleston matchup last weekend. Of course, Rhode Island FC going on to defeat Charleston 1-0, handing the Battery their 5th loss of the season. Look, let's start things off here with the importance. I want to ask you, was this a complete match? We asked it in the press release. You heard it in the press interview. You heard it earlier on Monday's mailbag. But, you weren't there, so you've gone back now and rewatched the match. Was this one of the most complete games of Rhode Island FC's season?
Yes. I mean, I guess also, I believe so. You look at how low of a possession percentage that we had. We were dug in the trenches, and Kano probably would have liked to see more possession there. But I think at the end of the day, you got the job done. We limited the amount of shots that they took. They were passing around, but what were they doing with it? Right. We kind of containing them. And we, like you said, I think we played a pretty much complete game without maybe having a bit more of possession of the ball.
And yeah, Kano wants the ball more, but I see this team as a team that just demonstrated more of what made them so great in 2024, being explosive, being transition, being comfortable, kind of living off of a scramble defense, a little bit of an emergency. Kano said it best, they bended, but they didn't break. And I think that's what makes, when you have talented defenders, I think that's one of the best things about them is that they can absorb it to the point of, Charleston thinks they have the advantage. They think they have the edge. And then suddenly fortunes are going in the opposite direction. I also think, Charleston was technically the second best away team this season so far in terms of goal production and results and in terms of XG and everything. Spoiler, Lou City's number 1, by the way. So we have them next. But when you look at this, I do think this is a complete game. And I think some people would say, hey, bit of a snooze fest, but maybe they weren't watching that first half where, yeah, there were chances. I mean, Charleston knocking on the door several times, trying to pick Koke Vegas's lock. But this is exactly what this Rhode Island FC team should be playing as. Should be scrappy, should be a little elusive, be dangerous to predict. And then suddenly, boom, You get that header. I mean, how many times have we seen a cross connect to a header this season? Not too many, despite how much we're, team Aldair Sanchez with his cross accuracy this season. Hasn't happened a lot. Finally, you see it in the 69th minute, and then this team just holds on. They rally and they show that they can close down this Charleston side. And don't get me wrong. There's some things that Charleston probably didn't do to set themselves up for success, but like, this is really the real deal. At least in that performance, we'll see if it's something that can move into the next game and the next game after that. We'll see if the lessons have been learned that will carry over. But I do think this is one of the best games. And I finally, Jason, I get to say the stat that I haven't gotten to say in quite a few weeks, to be honest, at least since the Detroit game, but it didn't feel right to say it off of a penalty score instead of an open play goal. But we haven't, lost a game in 21 matches now when we score the opening goal. And that goes all the way back to Colo Spigs last year in May of 2024. I'm telling you, when this team finds a way into that, even if it's in the 69th minute, even if it's that late into the game, we usually are able to hold on to those kinds of wins. I mean, we always are so far, it looks like. So I will take it. I thought it was a great game, but do you have opinions before we get into this roster construction?
I mean, yeah, some people may be aggrieved that maybe wasn't super exciting, could be a bit suspicious going into the half 0-0, but like, it's also important to acknowledge that we came into this match as the underdogs. So for a team as free scoring as Charleston to keep them 0-0 at halftime, like that in itself is somewhat of a victory. Sure, Jennings wasn't on the pitch, but also, that there's some, I don't know if there's some issues of form or something there. We'll maybe get into that a little bit later. Like, Charleston didn't roll over. They were trying to break us down. They actually attempted the highest total single passes in a USL Championship match this season with 637. And I think they completed over 500 of those. Very, very high accuracy there. They were trying to find a way to break us down, but it was one of those matches where it felt like we were very resolute in the back and kind of defending as a unit.
Yeah, and I know the XG doesn't tell the full story. I know the chance creation, that's a big opportunity. Torrin had some discussions after the game with us about how, like, the chance creation still might not be there. But look, like, it's not like Charleston wasn't dangerous on the night, right? It wasn't like they, like you said, they didn't roll over. They weren't there not to play. Again, the Jennings thing, I scratched my head multiple times how you don't, like, was that a level of disrespect towards Kano and the Amber and Blue? Like, oh, we don't even need to put our best striker out there. I'm not sure. But what we can talk about is what allowed this team to thrive. And that's the construction of what Kano Smith put together. We've been after him for weeks, maybe months now, about, we're kind of confused at times about what his roster builds look like, what his game plan looks like day after day. He rightfully said in the press conference, I asked how he had changed the tactics between these two, and he's like, well, Matt, you set up between different opponents different ways. And it's like, yeah, that's not what I'm going with. I'm trying to say, like, what are you trying to find from your team right now so that they can dig in deep, get these results? And I think he might have tapped into something finally. But again, Jason, I don't think it's something we haven't all been saying from the top of the roofs for a long time now. Maxi in the middle, bring the midfield out a little bit more. The 3-5-2 is the right way, despite our right flank oddities, and find someone who wants to go find a goal and score a goal on this team. And he went out and did that. So I'm gonna move it over to you and let you kind of walk the listeners through exactly how Kano prepared this match.
Yeah, and since the previous one, we're looking at 2 player changes, 1 positional change here, but we have Koke Vegas in net. We've got a back 3 there of Ugo Bacharach, Karifa Yao, Amema Vika. We have Matthew Cochran sitting in front of them, part of that 5 midfield with Clay out on the right there, Maxi Rodriguez, Marky Barra there in the center there with Matthew, and then Jojea Quizera out on the left with Amos Shapiro Thompson as kind of like a false 9 striker thing with JJ Williams up there up top with them.
Would you argue, like, when you look at this lineup, would you argue that he was, because like at sometimes when you look at his average positioning, when you look at his heat map, I couldn't quite tell if he was a free floating 10 or like a false 9 or just someone who was like running to overload. Kano said afterwards that his whole goal was to put another midfielder to overload the front of the midfield, to kind of plug that space inside the box. Do we need more of that, or was it what Amos brought on the game day that made it unique and special?
So this is very, also you could look at this very much as a flexible 4-3-3, because the reality is too, you would pushed. Maxey was out there on the right when he sent that cross in, and that's kind of what he's been doing there, floating around, but also tucking in as a midfielder. And similarly with Amos Shapiro-Thompson there, finding himself out on the flanks there, trying to bolster the attack going forward. But then you pull them back in to create that extra, like clog the midfield, create that extra solidity. And then, of course, you have Corcoran and Ibarra there to kind of help clean up shop. I think it worked well here. I would, maybe like to see more of it, but at the same time, then we also have, Jose is going to be out, right? So at that point, do we slide Amos over there and we just say, who needs wings backs? We're just going to play midfielders out there and then put Busy in there. Like, I don't know, looking toward this weekend, how that's going to pan out. But I think it was interesting. It worked very well here. We've complained a lot about how empty that midfield can be at times. And I mean, we are oops all midfielders. So why not just cram a bunch of them in there and clog it up?
See, I didn't see him. I didn't see Amos overloading, like Kano said. I saw him just fitting a place where we had a natural gap in connecting each side of the pitch, or bringing the park into its complete like enclosure there. I'll argue, in addition to kind of the roster selections, I think everything was great. Corcoran dropping a little bit deeper this time, allowing Ibarra to move up, something we haven't seen in a while. Rodriguez, like you said, all over the place. I still don't love Holstead out on the right, but I would have almost said, like, wouldn't Amos be better? You've talked at length about how positionally he's a little bit more disciplined, and he doesn't necessarily he sticks to the roles that are assigned to him, versus Holstead will kind of go and chase the ball or hunt the opportunity, so to speak. When I look at the lineup, also in addition to what was started, it's great to see Grant Stoneman back now getting some minutes. I could easily see in a future swap Stoneman getting his resuming right center back starting role back, and then maybe Bacharach replacing or filling in for Corcoran as he's gone now. So it was good to see. And then also Zach Hervo coming back in the midfield where he belongs. I know he's utility. I think Torin had a great point on the show about how, much like Clay, you have options on where you can put him in based on the needs of how you rotate the players around. But I still think he very much belongs in that midfield. Part of what kind of helped start to get the offense into like those positions and those shapes that really started to discombobulate Charleston there in the back half of the match. All in all, though, I loved this game, and I don't know why I loved it. Not just the result. I mean, like you said, we were anti-possession. What was it? 39% possession? I
think it was actually lower.
I got the stats right here. So this 32.7% possession. That is wild, considering that just 6-7 weeks ago, if we didn't have 57% of the possession with 500 passes of our own, it was like, that's not what Kano wants to do. It was incredible. We won over almost 60% of our aerial duels. We out dribbled Charleston 16-6. I mean, like we looked like 2024. We looked like we were back. It was a taste of what we had missed. Why aren't we playing this more often, Jason? Was this strictly unique to picking the pocket of Ben Pierman because we've done it before in the Eastern Conference Final? We have a really good record against them now. Surprisingly so, as they're one of the best teams in the East now consistently over the last 3 years. Why was this game so good? Help me understand. Help me believe that this game can be just as good against Lou City later this week.
I mean, do you think to a certain extent in this specific game, like you kind of brought it up earlier, did they maybe to a certain extent disrespect us by not playing Cal Jennings or like Juan David Torres?
Well, Torres was injured. You missed out on that. So Torres was injured. Arturo Rodriguez filling in, but they got MD Myers. He's got like 7 or 8 goals. They've got Jackson Conway. Like they have goal scorers in them. They're a complete team just as much as we had a complete performance. I don't know why they didn't start Cal Jennings. If it's not disrespect, it was for something else. Considering he bagged the brace against us in the opening game of the season, I don't know why you don't do that.
Yeah, I think he's tied for leading goal scorer in the league, right? With Goodrum from Lou City, right?
Spoiler alert about that. Some news coming out of that one this week. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know what it is. I don't know if Kano has finally evolved his tactician game. I don't know if like sometimes you just get it right and we just have to enjoy that, or if this is a sign of things to come. I want it to be that last statement. I want this to be that 2024 team again.
I think that's the problem that we've seen, is because we have seen a few other good performances from this team, right? at the time, North Carolina, sure, it was a penalty, but we still had to like you win that penalty and you have to score it. They are still a good team in this league, and we were able to get a win against them. So this team can put out good performances. The problem is they can't do it week after week. And until we can see them do it, it's really hard to then look to the next game, especially when it's against the number one team in the league, and like say, "Yep, we've got this. We're going to go out there and do it." We've shown that we can. The $1 million question, or was it $1.7 billion?
$1.7 billion. If we won $1.7 billion, sidebar for a second, we're buying Rhode Island FC, right?
Oh, obviously.
Yeah. Who's the first player you would just spend stupid money to make this team better?
I don't know.
Would you buy like a player that's appropriate, or would you go like overspend by like 500, or 50 million? I got to be putting things in perspective here. $50 million to bring a player that has no business playing in the championship.
You could put yourself in a really precarious situation doing things like that in regards to like
if it doesn't pan out.
Well, also like look at fourth place or maybe even worse, Messi. Like they're
but don't you know the league
throwing tantrums?
The league's going to let them win,
spitting on people. Like they like it's not actually as easy it is to just buy. It would be a very like long term like sicko investment, like crazy soccer Wrexham kind of idea. That's how I would go.
Still do it. All right, let's get into these. Let's get into the two things I think that were critical for this win. Let's first talk about the JJ Williams goal. It was his third goal in the championship regular season so far. That's a wild stat. Like, where have you been all year, JJ? Right, you've been injured for a very long time. Since July 12th is when he finally came back after a very long-term injury.
I mean, also, it was his first goal at Centerville Bank Stadium.
So we were trying to think of like what
even more wild one, I think.
First goal at Centerville Bank Stadium. It's like, where have you been, right? First goal since May, because he's missed the entirety of Centerville's operation for the most part. Last goal he scored was in Westchester. He now has more goals than any player. So we're talking about a guy who's missed, at least a third of the season. He now has more goals than any player in the regular season performances here in Rhode Island FC. He's tied Chico now with the 16th total goal of his career. They're both now set at 16. Like, when we talk about the last time JJ Williams scored, everyone, it was in that super crazy smashing of Oakland Roots back on April 5th. Like, I just want you guys to go back and think about who you were as people on April 5th, and you're not those people anymore. You've done hopefully a lot of things since then, or maybe you've done just the same thing over and over, but you haven't been scoring goals.
Time traveled.
That is crazy that our best striker, arguably our best striker, has been out of action since April 5th. I just struggle. When we talk, 16 goals on the season, man, we wonder why, and it's all fingers point back to JJ's injury, and so it can't happen again. JJ, you need to bubble wrap those legs, bubble wrap your body, whatever you need to do. Again, he was getting beat up out there.
After every match, put Koke and JJ into like cryo freeze chambers. And as soon as the match day comes out, open them up, defrost them real quick.
Fun fact, I was on Federal Hill last night having dinner. JJ walked right past me. We looked like he didn't look me in the eye. Don't know if that's just like, don't talk to me. I'm on a date night with my wife. Leave me alone. But walked right past. And I went for we going to do this? And just living his best life. It's okay. I get it. He already has to deal with me in the press box. He already has to deal with me on the pitch. But
we run into them sometimes, and it's very much a like, we'll glance over, and if they acknowledge us, we'll say something to them. If not, they leave them alone. They're probably enjoying their life. So
right. It's like, how dare they be popular celebrity figures here in the smallest state in the union? But look, that goal is exactly what JJ needed. And what I hope comes from it the most is, Kano has talked about this at length. He's always said that the type of striker that JJ is he's like the ultimate form machine. The more he gets into form, the more unstoppable he gets. I think last year, if I quote incorrectly here, but bear with me, he said that like scoring goals gives JJ wings. It just, his jump gets a little bit higher, his shots get a little bit cleaner, like he just gets a little bit angry, a little bit more like nose to goal. And so hopefully this is that catalyst, right? We've talked about momentum all season. We've seen a lot of wins, and then it doesn't translate into any kind of consistency, right? We've talked about the Eagermeister Cup and how great we've been doing in that, and then like the very next game, it's a draw or a has not changed yet so far this season. It's a little different for this game because I don't think there's as many expectations that we do what we did last weekend against the number one team. It's like, we can do that to number two, but can we Can we do it to number one? I don't know. But I do think for JJ to continue and to be excellent for the remainder of the season, I think he's got to find a way to score a goal against Lou City. He did it twice in the postseason last year. I think he got one also in the 5-goal game in June of last year too, the smashing there. I'm not sure, but I think he did. JJ's got to find a way to goal, because what we need more than the result, I would argue, this weekend is we need him to get into red hot form to carry us to the promised land for the remainder of the season. But that being said, with the offense, I think, again, I know we already talked about the team of the week stuff, but I think we also really have to give the flowers to Koke Vegas.
Yeah. Things getting done up the front and at the back of the team. Like you said, a lot of focus is on JJ, but, you can count on Vegas to put in a performance, and he did again here. They attempted 5 shots in this game, the lowest total in a single USA championship match this season for them. So
they had the highest passing of the night in the history, shots. But the lowest. That's weird. That's weird for them.
With that stat, though, also you have to give a lot of flowers to the back line,
of course,
because they were probably pushing and pulling a lot of them to not let them get into positions to take those shots. And this is such another wild stat here. It doesn't feel like it, but unbeaten in the last 8 games at Centerville Bank Stadium, a draw with Hartford, I know, but still, that's...
If you had put that as a bet, you would have fleeced me for whatever amount within. If you had said $5 bet, I'd be like, there's no way.
It says wild because it just doesn't feel like it. And they've kept a clean sheet in 8 of their 22 games. Only Sacramento Republic with 9 have done better this season in the USL Championship.
So they have 8. We know Koke has 7. So Jackson's only gotten 1 on. Man, tough for the Australian. And
yeah, RFC has not conceded a goal at home since July 26th and has kept club record 4 straight shutouts at Centerville Bank Stadium.
I love it. So we've talked about everything great from the maxi and the double pivot, more of an 8 double pivot than a 6. We talked about the defense and their ability to absorb all of that pressure and bend but not break. Let's talk about improvement. I saw something that I think people are going to be upset, especially considering all of this talk about, player of the year for Defiance 1636, which if you have not yet voted, go and do so. Do not be like a certain individual named Jessica who did not vote last year because they forgot exactly when they were allowed to finally finish that voting. So go and vote today, vote now, put this podcast on pause.
Vote early,
and
vote
if you're
often.
live, just go vote while you're talking. We'll help influence that about why that should be Aldair Sanchez. But I know one of the other ones that people are talking about is Amos Shapiro-Thompson. Look, we just talked about a second ago how he's a bulldog. He's really good on the flanks. Could he replace, Jorge Quazera instead of Sanchez on this weekend's performance? I'm not going to take anything away from AST. I think that there's some things that he did in that game that helped wear down Charleston, and at times he looked dangerous. I know there's the play of the game where he basically caused the turnover, intercepted the ball, and then drove it back the other way, did the Meg, and then ran it down the flank before he got tackled. He got tackled down. I know this is going to sound really, and I know people are going to yell at me. I just don't think we need him to start. I think that there's a ferocity in him that if we get a solid 40 minutes out of him, 45 minutes at the end of a game, whether we're chasing or we're holding on to a lead, I feel like that's something that we can take advantage of and tap into in the later stage of a match.
Sub him in the game at the 60th minute every game.
I would rather see a more creative player looking forward, because he'll track anywhere. Maxi's even said, he makes me better because he cleans up my mistakes. I think that's the type of profile. And granted, he can do a lot. I'm not diminishing him. I'm not trying to diminish him. But Chico and Fuson didn't even come off the bench. And Tom Quinlan asked, we talked about on the Monday mailbag, how do you have 2 of your attacking weapons? You don't even bring them in. They're not good enough right now. They're not doing their job. They're not scoring goals. They're not helping with the attack. So I'm going to find other players. Brito gets a sub in instead of them, right? Bizzy's making an impact. I think Bizzy could work his way into a starting role. I maybe for this match, and you'll see it in the lineup predictions, guaranteed to be wrong, but I really think Amos comes out. Bizzy is the one in that space instead, just so that there's an extra kind of bit of support, because for all the great that AST was in that middle overload, not a lot of people were supporting JJ Williams in the box on the night. He was getting beat up a lot. He had a lot of calls not go his way. He talked about that at length. And he just says, I expect to get beat up by teams when they just put 2 or 3 defenders on me. And as a lone striker, with you can say it's a 3-4-3 with the wingers, the players that can come into the wings, but no one's going into the box. No one's really supporting him in those moments. I think a player like Busy helps unlock each other a little bit more than what Amos Shapiro Thompson offers on that. So if I had to make one tactical change, I would say AST very much needs to be a part of this team, but maybe more in a secondary role.
I mean, I can see it. I think that's one of those things where there's some flexibility in regards to how you set yourself up. So if he is part of that front three or the two behind the one up top there, if you need someone to be more active in midfield in a position where you find yourself not going to have a lot of the ball like we did, I think in this game it ended up being the right call. Against an opponent where we're going to have more of the ball, you probably want to swap them out for Busy. At that point, you're going to create more chances and opportunities to kind of move, actually, go up there and score some goals. Whereas against Charleston, we kind of expected, well, we're going to be lucky if we see the ball. So in that regards, I'd almost think, not to jump ahead, but like Louisville, maybe similar setup, hard to tell.
Well, all I know is that, and the stat that really drives my need to see another attacker somewhere in there is we're still second worst in the league when we're still at the bottom for goal production, but we're the second worst in the league in goals scored in the first half. That was like the first thing that came across when we were pulling, information and stats was we've now failed to score in 15 of our 22 matches this season in the first half. Like we've only scored 7 times, Jason, in that first half. Like that's not a way to take the initiative to build into your own attack plan. That's you chasing games. That's you not being able to dictate your terms on the opponent. And so like I think that's the tweak. Now again, I would also be able to argue myself and go, hey, we got one of the best results possible. Don't change a thing. You have to change a thing because Corcoran won't be around, Quazera won't be around. So no matter what, you have to do a little bit of change here. But I don't know. And speaking of Corcoran, I want to ask you, do you think now that he's going to be gone for a bit, is this the time for Connor to find what's the best chemistry in that midfield? Like, is it Haribo returning now? And is this a chance to say, hey, like, this is the Jack Panayotu moment of like, while you were gone, we found that thing and like, you're still going to help us in a substitute role, but we're really going to like land on the midfield, the oops all midfielders I have. I'm going to find the 3 that I need in that midfield.
Yeah, I think because there's also, with it being a loan, there's no guarantee we keep him after the season, right? In the sense of,
well, yeah, but who cares about the season? Like, to your point, yes, but like right now, it's like the next. Come on, I'm Coach Connor. We just take a game after game, baby.
Sorry, I'm thinking too big picture here, But you mentioned Bacharach. Like, is he does he become that 6th than we thought he can be? We've seen him play there a little bit, and I think what he does really well is those kind of marauding runs where he's very comfortable dribbling the ball up, the field. The only thing I guess I'd wonder is if he was sitting there at the top, does he going to have the same kind of passing range that Corcoran has? And I don't know if that then, excludes him from that role. Maybe you put a Haribo in there, but I think you're right. This is a perfect opportunity to figure out what is that mix. Because at this point, we're assuming this is the formation we're now playing. We've abandoned the 4-2-3-1 thing we were doing earlier. We're playing some version of a 3-5-2, 3-4-3, 3-4-2-1. Doesn't matter. They're all kind of the same thing at certain times, depending on what the individual tactics with those roles are. But, this is what we're doing. Who are those midfielders? Right. Currently, we don't have a right back, so
what are you talking about? Clay Holstead is the new Steven Turnbull.
Clay got one of those crazy like Steven Turnbull masks and just put it on, and he's just doing his best impression of him there. So at that point, he's not part of that, but we have so many other midfielders. It feels like Ibarra is kind of a lock, assuming he's healthy. So who are those other 2 who sit with him?
Right now, I mean, we know Haribo is a Kano staple. And I think Maxi, I think that's your answer. I really do. I don't see it changing. I think you could probably swap a Clay in there if you have a Nodarse return and end up finally on that right wing that it looked like Kano was trying to get out of him. So then you have at least defenders on imagine you have Aldair and Nodarse starting, and then you have Jojea, Holstead, and Amos all coming off the bench in that midfield relief capacity. You've got Noah and Chico available. Like you have Brito maybe as an option. Like you start to suddenly have like some weapons. I think that's been the differentiation too. Is like not a lot of weapons come off the bench and make an impact. I mean, think about it off the top of your head. How many players have come off the bench this year and scored a goal? I can think of 2, at least at Centerville. Busy,
and I feel like
Brito had that wonder goal that got us the win. So I don't know. It's an interesting time for Kano as he looks at how he's going to manage this team. But needless to say, he's going to have to kind of get a lot of it right for the remainder of the season. We do have an easy schedule ahead in terms of competition, strength, and depth, but it's not going to necessarily be a guaranteed thing. So I'd say that we can leave it at that. We talked about Cal Jennings at length. Is there anything else besides the fact that, if Ben Pierman really did disrespect Kano and the boys, that's on him? Or
I did a little bit of research to try and see if I can figure anything out. Nothing too deep. I mean, you think about early on in the season, right? He was a big factor against us. He scored those 2 goals against us early on in the season. And I noticed he was playing a lot of minutes. And then all of a sudden, the last few games, right, he had 19 minutes against Pittsburgh, 60 against Loudoun, and then only 26 against us, when before that he was doing 90 minutes a lot of games. So I don't know if there's some slight knock that maybe was not made public or not easy to find, because the USL Championship does not really publish a lot of these kind of fitness things. I think, weirdly enough, RIFC is probably one of the better teams at it, as every match day they post a availability report, at least, if you will. Sometimes those are not always injuries, just someone's out for various reasons. The interesting thing, though, too, sure, he only played 26 minutes against us, but for every player that got a rating, he was the lowest on FOTMob, and there was like 5 other players who had less minutes than him who were able to influence the game more than he did. So he came on and pretty much couldn't do anything, to the point where he got a very low score. I know it's just a score, but it can kind of reflect like what you're doing in the game, and the fact that he couldn't get enough touches on the ball, or complete a pass or two, to at least get, like, everyone just like gets a 6 for existing. Pretty much.
You filled your name out on the
and
test.
He was like a 5.2 or something. So interesting. I don't, like you said, I don't know if they just disrespected us or there's some slight knock, but
all right, well, then
worked out for us.
It did, and it kind of didn't, though, here in this midweek situation. We go into the week in 8th place, back in the playoff hunt after our win against Charleston. But Indy 11 said, hey, hold my beer, because we're going to go do what you couldn't do, and we're going to go smash on Anthony Siaha and have him have a complete meltdown. Did you watch the highlights of that yet?
No, I missed out on
Siaha. He full nuclear power plant meltdown on his team, on the game. I mean, it was rough. Hopefully, if El Clamico goes into a final, like, this is the kind of unsettling we need to see.
Hopefully that meltdown continues. Yeah. I mean,
those meltdowns usually last and like radiate everything and do some permanent damage. So.
Yeah, we're gonna have to stay away from that elephant. It's really, really radioactive. So,
but with that result, we are now back in 9th place. So I hope you all enjoyed your playoff berth for all of the few days that it lasted. Now, with those 22 matches played, we'll only have 24 points on a 6-6-10 record. Still feels nasty, Jason, to have to say that we have double-digit losses here in the regular season performance. Goal differential slightly improved after that 1-0 win. We have 16 goals for, 23 against, so on a -7 there. Listen, we've talked about it at length. Right now we've talked that the priority is the Jägermeister Cup, but there's still a lot of work to be done in this playoff picture. I don't know at this point, as I continue to stress the copium, if you will, of where will we fall. Like, earlier it was like home playoff berth or bust, right? Then it was like, 5 through 8, we're good. We're gonna get 5 though, and like it'll be a close race, just like it was last season. Now it's like, hey, can we get 8th and like put a sizable gap between us and the 9th place team? I'm starting to get there. And the more I look at the schedule ahead, the more I look at what's kind of ahead for Rhode Island. I don't necessarily not see where we can't pick up a majority of these points. I mean, let's not talk about this weekend's game, and let's keep Jägermeister out of our mouths for a second. Indy 11, I would have said up until this midweek match, a beatable team, but they go and do what was apparently impossible against Hartford, as they snap like a 9-game unbeaten streak for them. You've got Miami FC, we thought we'd win the earlier match of the season. They're starting to jettison players left and right over there. So I don't know if that project has come to an end. I think we can pick up all 3 points. El Paso, if there's one thing I've learned from Wilmer Cabrera at the helm over there, it's that you will not win against them no matter how many goals you put up. You will draw against that team. So especially considering it's away, I don't project that we'll get anything more than a draw just because they seem scrappy. Las Vegas and Tampa, I want to say those are easy 3 points each. North Carolina starts to seem like they're coming apart at the seams, so I'm not really quite sure.
Falling off.
Yeah, like maybe they were like, maybe we're really not a home playoff berth kind of team, and they're going to start slipping. But I still see them in the playoffs very much.
Absolutely,
so I don't think they can really. They'd have to work really hard to get themselves out. And then New Mexico's kind of slipping too as the end of the game here. So like really the only
they also somehow held Louisville to a draw recently. So like at Louisville, which is not an easy feat to do.
But like, I mean, I would say a majority of the points here are on the table. So like, if we just say out of the, 7 games that will be remaining, not counting this one, that's 21 points made available. If you added that to it right now, that would put us, if no other team played a game, that put us in second place. Obviously, that's not how it's going to work. And a majority of these opponents are all Eastern Conference. I don't see why we couldn't target a potential 5th or 6th place spot. But knowing how Rhode Island FC Rhode Island's, we're going to have to probably just say, hey, 7th or 8th might be keep our expectations low so that the disappointment can't creep in. Do you feel any different about that?
No, I think at this point, like I mentioned earlier, until I can see them, unless we go out there and smash Louisville and say, okay, maybe we're back, boys, but I think it's going to be tough. Fun fact or awful fact, depending on how you want to look at it. The gap between us and Lou City, 27 points. If you actually added RIFC and Indy 11's points together, still not enough to catch up to them.
I mean, mathematically they can't reach. I think I have this in the notes later, but I'll just ask it now. They're at 51 points with what they've got 8 matches to go as well. Mathematically, they can't reach their record shattering season last year at 77. And that's mostly at fault because of the Jägermeister Cup and the games being taken away for that point accumulation. Do you think that record will remain in place for a very long time to come, as it looks like Jaeger isn't going anywhere?
Possibly. I think that's also one of those records that you'll say, oh, cool to have. And then people say, oh, okay, how'd you do the rest of that season? We don't talk about it.
Rhode Island FC came in the league that year. That snapped I think 10 years in a row of making it to the finals.
Something like that. Yeah. Always to the semifinal or final.
Or the conference final, I should say. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I don't know, man. But speaking of Lou, it must be good to be a Louisville City fan. 11 years making the playoffs. Like, they don't even have to work at it, apparently. In their 22 matches, like we said, 51 points earned, 15 wins, Jason, 15 wins. Guess how many times they've lost without looking at the notes?
A couple of losses.
Nope, just one.
Oh.
They have lost only one time. Almost a near perfect unbeaten season, I should say, with 6 draws, though, coupled in there. They've got 45 goals scored so far this season, only allowed 18 in. By comparison, we have only allowed 23, and we talk about how good our defense is. Well, Lou City is the best of the best, and I mean that in every single way. They are elite. They lead the league in just about every single stat you could want. Second fewest goals conceded. I think the best team in the league is out west, or is it Pittsburgh? I forget which. No, I think it's out west. Might be FC Tulsa in their spell. They're tied with us in total number of clean sheets per keeper in Damian Loss at 7. But we have one more, so we're in second place in clean sheets. Interestingly enough, Damian Loss right now, and this is something we have to talk about at length, injured with a quad strain similar to what Koke Vegas was going through. We don't know the significance of that injury, but has not been available. And Danny Fondes has been kind of really stepping up in a big way for Lou City. Go figure that the guy we were going to do this big old profile piece on as we started working on scouting reports, loaned from Austin, and then he's not even available on the game. Fondes has now stepped in, and he's actually the one that helped them clinch their 11th playoff berth of their entire history as a club. Jason, they've already clinched. First team to do it, and we're still here fighting for our lives to get 8th place. Life's not fair, my friend.
Must be nice.
Life is not fair. I guess I want to ask you, kind of going into this before we get to the head-to-head, is there anything that should stop Lou's momentum, or are they going to be the winners outright of the season? And you look at that postseason, no matter what, is Rhode Island FC's destiny to kind of go through Lou here?
Yeah, I mean, if our the best we can do at this point is get to 8th. Well, Louisville has a 4-point lead on Charleston right now, so which isn't a lot, but also at the same way, Louisville doesn't drop a lot of points. So if I remember correctly, they don't play each other anymore, right? It was a few weeks ago, the second match of the season.
Lou already beat Charleston, so like everyone was saying that was the USL Cup final preview. So we'll see.
Yeah,
I mean, obviously you can't have that as the final. They're both Eastern Conference teams, but
yeah, the winner would be one of those two.
Keep in mind, though, we've heard this a lot since we've been following the league, that the East always has the stronger teams, but the West has won it 4 years in a row. So, yeah, go figure on that one, too.
By the time we get to them, we've beaten each other so badly that there's nothing left.
I'm looking at Charleston's remaining season here, and they are surprisingly West Coast heavy for the remainder of their season. So, after us, they only have 2 matches left in the East, and everything else is out West against, I would say, maybe arguably really not great teams.
I mean, yeah, if you look at Louisville, then it's after us, Riverhounds, Las Vegas, Detroit, Indy, Miami.
I was just saying, if Charleston wants us to beat Louis, they need to throw us a bone. The only team that would help us at any way, shape, or form is they got to beat Indy then this weekend. So you take Indy off the board, we'll take Lou off the board. Charleston, we'll talk afterwards. But let's get into this head-to-head history, because up until maybe earlier this year in a certain midweek, I was feeling good. I was feeling really good about our time against against Lou City.
Yeah, when we kind of review our past with them, before that first match this year, we kind of had their number. Although they were perennial leaders of the league, we're like, nah, that's cool. We got this. When they came to visit last year, May 25th, 2024, home game for RIFC, 0-0 draw. Bit of a tough match there, but at the same time, to be able to keep them scoreless. And that was their record season too. So nothing to scoff at there. Then just about 2 months later, June 23rd, 2024, RFC really kind of kicked off their season after that early slog. And we just went in there and punched them right in the teeth. Came out with a 5-2 win. I think really shocked the league there to a certain extent, which really led into that kind of summer form that carried us on through the rest of the season until when we met them in the playoffs there, November 10th, 2024. And I think shocked them 3-0. Like you had mentioned a little bit earlier here, was it 10 years in a row that they've made it at least to the conference finals, and said, nah, it's our turn this year. So when we met them this year, June 11th, I think even though our form wasn't what it was, we kind of thought that we can at least get a draw against them because, we own them, right? Not so much. Kind of limped away with a 2-1 loss there. So, 4 battles, plenty of drama here. But we've had the edge so far. If you count all of the matches there, claiming 2 wins to Lou City's 1, with 1 match ending in a draw there. Rhode Island's attacks have been sharper, outscoring Louisville City 9-4. Just a bit wild considering they are the team that score left and right for fun. Their biggest shots came in 2024 with an emphatic win on the road, like we mentioned, the 5-2, 3-0. Kind of got their monkey off the back there against us back in June 11th when they, finally got one back on us with goals from Aiden McFadden and Ray Serrano. Aiden McFadden scored a real good goal against Indy 11 this past weekend, just outside the box. You love to see it, as long as it's not against us,
Well, I mean, you talk about that game too. It was a 2-1 win, but we didn't actually score in that match. That was also the own goal that Kyle Adams scored on our behalf, which gave us a little bit of hope that would be a draw at the end of the day. We did not actually score in that match. So I almost laughed at when they talk about where does that 3-0 win come from? Where does that 5-2? Technically, Lou City also has a 3-0 against us. They just forgot to score 1 in the wrong side of the net. That's all.
Yeah. And in a statement there, Lou City's, mentioned that they've kind of had some struggles against league newcomers. Maybe they kind of got to feel you out a little bit before they know how to beat you. But at this point, first place in the East, they're all gas, no brakes at this point. It's scary to see.
So what you're saying is we're going to keep doing what we've done, and we're going to finally pick up our winning ways against them, because not because of tactics, but simply just the luck of the draw. The roulette is going to be red
through the power
this
of
weekend.
friendship.
I love it. We got to talk about that run of form that they've been on since then. Lou City is a weird team, right? They had already been winning all these games. Mike in the chat already mentioned earlier they only lost to Loudoun when Loudoun was at their ultimate, Pokemon evolution of it as a team right now. They're going through some dark times over there with like Ryan Martin now maybe out, but maybe not. Like have you heard about that?
Yeah. Which is such a weird thing to announce before the end of the season. Maybe if you were at the bottom of the league and just said, hey, at this point, there's no point in we don't even know
the coach. But
yeah,
like,
just
done.
Do what you can.
Yeah. It's been weird. But anyways, the reason I bring up kind of where they've been is after that match, which didn't see Philip Goodrum score against us in that mid-May early June matchup. The Philip Goodrum, though, we talked about going nuclear here a second ago with Anthony Siaha. He went nuclear. He just started scoring. I think he got a hat trick against Birmingham, started earning multiple accolades, including Player of the Month in June. Goodrum, we knew he was a good player after their acquisition, picking him up from FC Tulsa last year, when we were like, why do you need another good striker? You have a good striker, at least the remainder of the season, until you transfer him off to some league in Israel is where he went. But he's finally kind of come into his own, and they haven't had a perfect season because, again, they've got 6 draws, kind of stumbling at times against teams like North Carolina and Miami where they shouldn't be. But Goodrum's absolutely in the hunt for the Golden Boot. Honestly, and with Cal Jennings getting less minutes and not finding opportunities, Goodrum could have been, up until this recording, he could have been a major contender for that Golden Boot. And then, it's a supporting cast, much like how they were talking about for Charleston, why MD Myers isn't firing lately, and that may or may not be with Juan David Torres. It's not just the front line for Lou City, it's that midfield. First, you have Taylor Davila. You've got now Kevin Lambert in the middle. He was a player that was kind of on the outside in when we first came through. He started against us at the Rhode Island FC match, but he got an early knock, so they pulled him off for precautionary reasons. So it's one of those things where this team, lethal up front. You've got Serrano, you've got Goodrum, you've got Adrian Perez, you've got now Brian Ownby from the Houston Dynamo. You've got some new kids that have been waiting for their chance to score goals. So they've got this great front. The midfield, you've got Davia, you've got both Davia brothers. There's 2 of them there. You've got McCabe, you've got Lambert. You just have this incredibly stacked midfield. And then defense, by the way, you've got Tosh, who's not even starting anymore for Lou City, which is a wild thing.
Didn't they recently just sign him this last year?
I think it's a 2 or 3 year extension. He was already 32 or 34 years old. And so just the confidence that he'll be a locker room guy, he'll be maybe a player coach someday. But on top of Tosh, you've got Ordonez, you've got Kyle Adams, we mentioned a second ago, newcomer, and Josh Jones is starting to kind of make a name for himself. This team is stupidly complete, and we talk about how they are trendsetters amongst the league. It's not just in the performances you see on the pitch, it's the operation, it's the stadium, it's the ownership group, it's the way they go out and buy players. They probably have the best scouting department, if they have one, or maybe they just have one person that's more than any other team in the league. But they go out and find the player that they need, and then once they have that player, they work them through the system for 2 to 3 years, and they find the way to move them on, whether it's to MLS, another team within USL, or abroad. They just get it done. And at this point, even if Charleston somehow gets close to dethroning them and getting going for the shield, the reality is Lou City is the best team in the league right now. It'd be silly to think that they're not. And Danny Cruz, he's done this before. There were people last year that wanted Danny Cruz out at Lou City because we beat them. Everyone's he's not good enough. We deserve better. And Danny Cruz is once again showing people they don't know what they're talking about when it comes to soccer, because he has done everything you need to do. They've locked in, they've clinched. I think they not only have clinched a berth, but I think they've clinched a playoff berth at home. Even if they lost every game for the rest of the season, I think if there's enough of a gap between 1 through 4 and 5 through 9 or 5 through 8, I don't even think they could. So anyways, they sit on top of the throne. Right now, the league is purple as royalty, the color as it should be. I anticipate they're going to be the hardest team to unpack, not just in this game itself, but also through the postseason. But Jason, let's talk quickly. How does Danny Cruz construct this team, and what is Rhode Island FC in store for this weekend?
Yeah, and so Lou City have carved out a distinct identity here in 2025, built around vertical speed and ruthless efficiency, rather than dominating possession, which they're rated very lowly in the league. Actually, they kind of thrive in transition. Something we did last year. Maybe
they stole our notes.
Just stole our notes, and they're just like, "Oh, that's how you do this."
The ultimate sign of respect.
Yeah. Using a 3-4-3 setup that emphasizes direct play and quick ball movement. Center backs are asked to play line-breaking passes into the front three, while wing backs stretch the field and midfield pivots, linking phases. The goal isn't really to string together a lot of endless passes. They're also very low in pass completion too. It's very much about being direct there, strike quickly, sharp runs, incisive combinations, try and punish the defenses before they can rest. Yeah. So I pulled a few stats. They're ranked 23rd in accurate passes out of 24 teams.
That doesn't sound right at all.
And they're somehow also the best team in the league and 20th in possession.
Well, then if that's the case, then the only way they can pull that off is they have to remain completely organized in their shape. Where if a pass doesn't go through,
you have to then immediately, get back into position.
Yep.
You try a really crazy attack and like, okay, didn't work. Get right back. Like, don't rest on your laurels there. Make sure you are constantly, locked in, like the kids like to say.
Well, then, and that makes sense of what we kind of saw similar to the game last weekend with Rhode Island FC. You talk about defenses being able to bend, being able to shift and keep the game in front of them,
but not break.
Yeah. Like that's what Lou City's doing well. So maybe now Lou City copied our homework and we're just copying Lou City's homework back. It's copception. That's clearly what this has to be. But listen, I'm gonna
Best Buy Drake meme. It's like, oh,
but listen,
I do that.
I'm gonna talk. You're absolutely right about creating these opportunities, because I think once they get the ball into one of those dangerous positions from that direct play, it's all about overloads. It's about throwing numbers forward. They have the endurance, they have the athleticism to pull it off. That's what makes them good. I saw someone write in a blog about them, like they're like swarm and strike right now. I usually call that run and gun, but they're like swarm and strike is the mentality that they have right now. And that's part of the overload. That's part of Cruz's system. But I will say this, going back to this defensive resilience. You said earlier, teams can be all gas, no brakes, like this Lou City. And I think last year they were. But I think when you look at the games where we punished them, they did that at the expense of that back line. Like that back line would overcommit too many times, and then they were out of sorts. Think about the first J.J. Williams goal in that postseason run. He tore through the lone defender. They had one defender trying to contain a J.J. Williams, and that's just not something you can do. I think that's where Cruz has made the biggest adjustments this year, as he's been focusing on that back line. Like he's already got the rest of it kind of figured out. So it's like, how can we be this good, but maybe not allow as many goals in this year? Like maybe last year was like, hey, I don't care if we win by 4-3, 3-2, just win these games. Now it's that clinical cleanness of like, hey, we're going to win by 3-1. We want to win 2-0. And you've seen that now in this reduction with this
How do
fewer
I copy
goals.
The defensive steel that RIFC are known for?
Exactly. And I think that has what's made them an even better team here in 2025. And so, yeah, now you've got this team that can press, they can counter. But the thing that we think we can do this, but they can do better than anything else. They can still finish the ball. 45 goals. Like that's,
how dare you?
Could you imagine? Could you imagine? So anyways, let's talk about these ref assignments and get into what kind of the details of how this is going to break down.
Yeah, we got Benjamin Meyer here as the head ref, with assistant refs Tom Felice and Joe Shukowski, with the fourth official being Andrew Borada.
Fun fact, you said Benjamin Meyer there, so I immediately looked up, is he related to Will Meyer in any way, shape, or form? Because we could use a little bit of advantage against this team right now. And as far as I know, he's not related to our Will Meyer, but I will tell you that Ben Meyer did oversee our very first win in club history, that 420 win against Las Vegas Lights away in Las Vegas. And then he also oversaw our 3-1 victory over Birmingham Legion that introduced Zach Harivo to many Rhode Island fans in his magical brace that doubled his record of goals in his entire history.
So he's a good luck ref.
I'll take, hey, we need every advantage we can possibly have. Now, let's get into the crux of the matter tonight. This is kind of a big deal, and I think this is going to shape how people may look at this match ahead this weekend. Lots of questionables, lots of players maybe not available here on both sides, starting with Rhode Island FC. Frank Nodarse still remains questionable. I'll see if I can get out to media tomorrow and see if he's out, doing the things he needs to do and maybe be able to report back. Cole Dewhurst, as we understand, still out and not available. And then you've got Jojea Kwizera and Matthew Corcoran out on international duties for Rwanda and America, respectively. On the Louisville City side of things, you do have 3 players, and these are big, important names that will not be available for this match. Damian Loss, their goalkeeper that's on loan from Austin FC, will probably most likely not be available. He hasn't made an appearance in the last few matches with Danny Foundes out there replacing him. There is a quad strain. That's what we do know that's been reported. Again, Koke Vegas had a quad strain, and he was out for, I want to say, 11 weeks or forever, as Jason so eloquently puts. The big one, though, and this is the damage here. This is going to be where Lou City tries to find what they can do in response to it. Phil Goodrum did go down in the 40th minute in their match last weekend against Indy 11. Right now, you can't rule him out. It could have been precautionary. There's nothing coming out of that camp right now except for what fans are speculating. I will say that if he's not available, big questions on the night, right? Lots of changes will happen on how well this team operates. I think Goodrum, despite the fact that he's not always, behind every single goal, he's a linchpin in the organization and the leadership and the momentum that drives Lou to where they're at right now, and not having him is a major blow. And then to add, insult to injury or salt to the wound, Kevin Lambert also out on international duty for Jamaica.
Score against Indy,
who did have one of the goals last week. So, you talk about some of these names on both sides, and those 3 are probably the 3 you do not want to not have available for Lou City. Unclear if this changes the dynamic of the game to Rhode Island FC's, favor, or, does Danny Cruz, can he reach deep? Can he find alternates and weapons that he can use?
If we can pick up points against Charleston and Louisville and have their fan bases say, well, we didn't have our best players, I don't care. I'll take those points.
So let's walk us through what we think Rhode Island FC might construct to take on this Lou City side this weekend.
Yeah, here's our match prediction, guaranteed to be wrong. With the exception of Koke Vegas, in that there. We're pretty good at getting that one right. Hugo Backrack, Karifa Yao, and Ame Mabika in a back 3. With a few people out, a few changes here. Clay Holstad deputizing as that right wing back there, with Zach Harivo, Mark Ibarra, and then kind of maybe Maxi Rodriguez tucking in and part of that midfield, maybe as a 5 or up front as part of a 3. Aldair Sanchez going to be out left with Mr. Jokes Quizera out on international duty, with JJ Williams up top as a lone striker, with Dwayne Atkinson supporting him out there on the left wing there. Maybe also similarly kind of tucking back in to drop there, pick up the ball, work some interchanging 1-2s, work his way up the field. I'd say to a certain extent, you can't just play the same lineup again. Kano's very much about playing that hot hand. We do have a few players missing. But I think in that regards, he's going to make the least amount of changes as possible, right? You're going to only try and do like for likes at this point and, see if you can pick up another result.
I mean, I agree. In the graphic, we have Ibarra in the deeper role because I think Haribo likes to range a little bit more, but you can easily rotate them back through.
Those two, yeah.
I think I honestly think this may be the first time that, like you said, despite the fact that we have to rotate some of these players, and maybe Amos gets the start over Atkinson, because again, Kano will also be the first to tell you, like, if my team won, like, I have to respect that they helped provide that result. Sure, Amos was one of the first players off, but like maybe that's still the tactic setup. Right now, what's important for me to see out of this isn't so much the players that sub in and sub out for this starting 11, but it's, does he keep the same system intact? Because what I'd love to see now is kind of have a little bit of faith in one particular style and then, tweak the tactics to adjust for Lou. So like if we see more of what we saw from a systems perspective, that's what's more important to me than any individual player and like where Kano thinks he'll be better on the day. Like that, I'm really hoping that we see something. And again, it's not fair to see because this graphic is just what I put for players out there. But when you look at the average positioning, and again, it's all fluid in the motion and the movement of these players. But in this last game, it was really kind of like a 3-1, 4-1-1. in the sense of like Corcoran that was the first time we only had like a single six. Corcoran was playing much deeper a majority of the game. And again, all these players would pulley and lever, they'd rotate through, they'd fill positions. But there was something unique about how there was just 1-6 and our 8s both were moved up a little bit further on the pitch to kind of to narrow that gap down. If Atkinson can replace AST, like, and this is the new system, I think Sanchez is a like for like right now with Quezera, because Quezera's offensive production numbers are just not there this season. I think we could see more of this, and I'm okay, Jason, with losing to Lou if we lose like 2-1. If we see a JJ Williams goal, like we talked about, keeping him in form, and we see that this team plays competitively, and we can learn some lessons from it, like I want the win, and I want to see that win. But like this could be the moment where we say Condo's got it down. He needs to make a few more adjustments, and we can win every single game for the rest of the season, including our Jägermeister Cup matches.
Yeah, I would argue the same thing. I don't think, obviously, I want the win, but I don't think the result is as important as the performance. Do they go out there and put a good performance and just lose against an unstoppable Louisville? Fair enough. We still have some other games that we kind of talked about earlier in the pod here that good opportunity to maybe pick some points up and kind of still sneak into playoffs there. And maybe by then, maybe we're ready to topple the the Goliath that Louisville is.
Speaking of Louisville, most likely, like you said, they like to play in that 3-4-3. There should be basically 4 player changes if our injury and unavailable predictions are correct here. Possibly 1 positional change as well, based on kind of what's worked for them. Remember, they're unbeaten in their last 5 matches, and they've scored 15 goals in their last 5 matches. 15 goals in the last 5, Jason, and we have 16 across 22. Just again, math is sometimes your worst friend. But in that 3-4-3, Danny Foundes in net for Damian Loss right now. Josh Jones is the newcomer. We didn't see him last time around. He's kind of stolen Sean Tosh's spot right now, the RI favorite, the guy with RI connections. Tosh could very much still come back in as a starter for this, but he's been kind of a little all over the place getting substitute roles. He had a goal in last week's game. Jones actually helped with some of the assist on that, but Tosh, I think, also came in more of like a hybrid 6/defender role to a certain extent. So kind of interesting to see where he's at. Ordonez will still very much be in that center spine with Kyle Adams likely to be the captain there in that back 3. Aiden McFadden most likely will continue his responsibilities on the right with Taylor Davila on the right midfielder line. Niall McCabe will probably tuck in a center midfielder role to replace Kevin Lambert. He's been playing more out on that left midfield side, but Amadou Dia is available as well, and he's primarily a left midfielder, so I see him slotting further out on the wing. That being said, though, when you look at this midfield 4, Jason, you have to remember that when we played Lou last time around, it was a midweek matchup, and they had some rotation they had to go through. So we actually saw the Davila brothers out there on the pitch together, Evan and Taylor. So maybe McCabe goes out a little bit further to the left. Dia comes in as a weapon off the bench, or maybe the younger Davila is the one that does that. And in this front 3, kind of just looking through the predictability of what Cruz has been picking for the last few games here. Jansen Wilson absolutely is going to be somewhere on that front line. He's moved up since we last saw him. He was tucked more in a central midfielder role because of some injuries that they were working through last time we saw them. Ray Serrano very much is going to be on that left side. You could swap for one of these wingers with Adrian Perez, but I think he's been kind of relegated to a substitution role. But the real question is, if Goodrum's not available, is Brian Ownby going to be the guy up front? Like, is he going to be the starter? They have a couple of newer, younger kids who have started to get some minutes, started getting some starting looks as well. Not sure that they're ready for a performance of this nature, but Brian Ownby, he comes from the Houston Dynamo all the way back to like Reading United way back in the day. Like, he's got a pedigree of scoring goals as a forward in MLS, so he should be able to. He hasn't scored yet in the championship this season, so maybe I've just gone and jinxed that, and we'll see an Ownby goal here at Centerville Bank Stadium this weekend. But we talked earlier in the season about how McCabe and Lambert weren't really getting starts until just recently. Danny Cruz, obviously he listens to our podcast as well because he's now integrated them in. I guess I just want to ask you, comparing this team to what we know and the results that happen, is this one of the most deepest talent pools available in the championship? And should we be worried about that at all? Like, is Lou City the team that we may be doing well against? Are they going to completely flip the script by the 60th minute?
It is a good possibility. I mean, we just felt like you listed 100 players there of all high quality. I mean, you talk about, RI connected Tosh, who's not even starting anymore, right? We were, before he signed that contract last year,
We
we're like,
wanted
oh,
him.
maybe we can snatch him up. But they're like, nah, we're gonna lock him down. Adrian Perez and Jake Morris, weapons that can come off the bench to change the game. Can Cameron Lancaster come out of nowhere? I mean, he's still chasing some goal tallies, right? I mean,
Isn't he still the highest? He's still the highest, right?
Probably. I
He's
don't,
got
but
to be.
I thought
He's
there
the highest of
was,
something. Either
was
goals
it
or
like,
he's goals or games played. It's one or the other.
wasn't it like he wants to go for 100 for Louisville, right? And I think he's not that far off,
Yeah,
something like that.
That's why he came back. Yeah,
Yeah.
because he was with Lexington, which feels like that's a no-no. That's like Yankees, Mets. That's like Dodgers, Giants. You don't do that. Like, I mean, you go where the money takes you. But listen, this team's going to be deep. It's going to be a problem. And what I know it needs to happen is make sure that Connor Smith doesn't have a Ben Pierman moment and disrespect Lou City and think that, like, we aren't going to be playing for anything other than our lives. I guess I want to ask this question now. 3 starters out for Lou, potentially 2 for us if you count Corcoran. I think we have to count Corcoran as a starter at this point.
Yeah.
Who's in a worse run of potential loss of form and the damage to their team with these missing players? Is it Lou, or because does the depth make up for it? Or Rhode Island FC, are they more at risk here because they just finally found this standard that they want to hunt and chase, and now we have to change our players, not dramatically, but enough that it may impact the system?
I think it's hard to say because, like you had mentioned, Jojea hasn't been the same player as he was last year. I mean, he's not, I wouldn't say bad or anything, but his offensive output really hasn't hit the strides that it did last year. So then at that point, I'd argue is the only real loss we're kind of thinking about is Corcoran. And at that point, can someone on our team do a good Corcoran impression?
I mean, I've actually never heard him talk, so I could. I am a Matt though, so maybe I could. Oh, not that kind of impression. Oh, my apologies.
So at that point, does that, maybe if we're specifically speaking of just like, whose losses are more impactful, probably Louisville's. I think at that point, you're only really needing to swap out a holding midfielder who is comfortable on the ball and can kind of distribute that ball. They are potentially missing their number 1 goalkeeper, their number 1 striker, and, Kevin Lambert.
Probably one of their number 1 midfielders, yeah.
So, yeah, that they seem like they, bigger losses, but they're also very, like we just talked about, they have lots of depth. So maybe a perfect opportunity for us to kind of get a quick sucker punch, get a dirty 1-0 win. But at the same time, like, I wouldn't bet on it.
We mentioned the importance of, not this result per se, but this is probably a tuning match for a postseason run-in, whether we take 8th and then have to play them in the first round, or we advance through, the Loudons and then take them in the conference final or wherever. No matter what, these seem like they're going to run through either Charleston or Lou City. We bested Charleston earlier this week, so we showed that we still can do it when it matters. Is it important that we get that result here, or is it more important that we learn the results or learn the impact of our team's performance so that we can get the result in a postseason matchup? Like, does this game serve as a testing ground, or will that have to wait and see until we actually get to postseason?
I think it is a good testing ground if we have the ambition to continue to go for playoffs. Because it's increasingly looking like it's going to be difficult to get in with the hole that we've kind of dug ourselves in. Like we just mentioned a little bit earlier, I think the most important thing from this match is the performance. At the end of the day, the result is not as big of a deal. If you can build upon the performance and you can kind of separate the fact that, sure, did we lose? But we went out there and made the best team in the league work really hard to beat us. We scored a goal against them. We, maybe on a better day, could have beat them. Like, if you can come out of the game and hold your head high and feel like you really performed well against the top team, you can then take that into a midweek Jägermeister Cup game.
Which leads perfectly into my next question. The importance of this match is not nearly as important as this midweek match. You're already going to be down a Jojea Kozera and a Matthew Corcoran. If the Louisville match gets away from you, do you rotate the players?
Absolutely.
Okay, and if you're still in it, do you do any kind of minute management if the game is within reach here this weekend? Obviously, if the game's gone, then yeah, you do what you got to do. But if the game's within reach, do you go for it? Because the results here in the regular season could have implications. But also, right now, arguably the most important priority is Jägermeister, and Sacramento is not going to make it easy on us on that midweek just because it's at home. They've already showed us what they can do to us here at Centerville Bank Stadium. If you're Coach Cano, you managing minutes? You pulling JJ at the 45th, the 50th, just because you got to?
I don't think he will. I think he's famously told us all the time, one game at a time. I don't know. If
no, there's no way. This is the one time. This is the one time. This is not one game at a time. He will have Spratty or Ugarte or McKay will have an iPad with all of their GPS, their mileage, their performance, their heart rates, and this guy's redlining right now. We need him. We need him on Wednesday. I just don't see us not managing those minutes.
Yeah, no, I think they'll definitely go through all 5 subs there. And I think there won't be just garbage time subs, right? We're going to see them a bit earlier on in the game. I just think that at the same time, because of how important it is to still try and go for points in the league to secure a playoff, though, like you said, there can be some positions where it's 0-0 and it's the 60th minute. We could come away with the draw, which would be good, or snatch another win here. So maybe at that point you have a different, you almost have 2 sets of substitutions in mind. This is if it's not going well, let's just get the important players some rest for Wednesday. If we're close, let's try and maybe make some more impactful changes, if you will, to try and go for the match.
But that's what Cano would do, or is that what you would do? Do you expect Cano to follow that same set of rules?
It's hard to say. He always throws curveballs at us. I never know what he's thinking sometimes.
I think
that's what I would do. I would have almost 2 plans here.
No, I hear you. And if we could score goals in the first half, because I don't know if you remember 15 or 22 matches we haven't.
We're not allowed to do that.
If we could do that, then I would say, okay,
you need a permit for it.
You get something in the tank, you park the bus, you do whatever you have to do. But I just don't know if they have that in them come this game this weekend. One part of me would also say though, how much of a confidence builder is it to destroy Lou City here at home and give it your all so that you can prep mentally for that match? Because I would argue, and maybe people disagree, but I would argue that 5-2 smashing and the confidence we had to do what no other team did to Lou at Lynn Family last year kind of screwed with them in that postseason game. I think that was one of those things where they said, oh man, they did us dirty and we can't let that happen again. And they played maybe so reserved, so scared that they could happen again, that it happened again. You know what I mean? I don't know.
Self-fulfilling prophecy.
Confidence is a weird thing, man. Confidence is a weird thing. Well, listen, I think that is going to be probably one of the biggest storylines is how do we go from this game? It's 3 really tough games into a 4th final tough game where it matters more than anything before. How does RIFC win this match?
I think we're going to need a little bit of luck on our side. Louisville also has the most accurate crosses per match in the league, as well as
most inaccurate passing, but most accurate crossing.
Yeah, as well as the most corners in the league by a pretty comfortable margin. So the back line's really going to be tested.
Can the chat remind us? Are we good at set piece defending again?
Debatable. So yeah, they're going to have to work really hard in the back line to keep that clean sheet. Louisville are also very efficient at winning the ball up the field. So our passes in the back are going to have to be pretty crisp. Sometimes we like to live life dangerously back there. That might not work out in our favor. And I know they didn't win, but I went back and watched a lot of the Indy match, and honestly, Indy created a lot of problems for Louisville. They were in RIFC is going to have to do something we haven't done as much lately. But they need to basically do the same thing as Louisville. If you play fast and direct, you can catch Louisville out.
I mean, that's how we scored the own goal.
Yeah.
Quizera was just way out, and they didn't think a pass would get to him. And then he had no business putting a pass into there. And Kyle Adams was like, all I can do is show you what you guys should be doing all the time.
And I know that Cano does not believe in this, but I think a lot of us fans do, is that this is one of those games where we don't want to be in top of possession, right? Let them possess the ball. They're not good at it. That's not what they want to do.
We've seen how successful it is.
Give them the ball. Say, figure out to do something with it. like almost like sit back and like force them to come at you. They almost want us to come onto them so that they can then let's just transition / counter you right now. So now we're all set up in our spots. Just almost park the bus, if you will, and just force them to come at you and then do the same thing they want to do against you and just counter them.
So I've got for mine, and this is contradicting to what we need to manage the minutes for that Sacramento Jägermeister game. But what I've looked at from the stats, but I've looked at from some of these matches, is Lou, you mentioned earlier, like they have that high octane, high tempo press. They want to control the game at every avenue. I think the reason Kano likes the possession styles because in his mind, it allows them to control the direction and flow of the game, right? Even if it's backwards half of the time. And, there's better soccer pundits out there in the world that will tell you, like, when you can dictate your terms, like you can make those opportunities happen for yourself, or you can deny a team for playing the way that they want to play. And like, that's why possession is an attractive idea. I look at Louisville's history so far this season, Jason. Here's some interesting stats for you. They've scored 21 first half goals out of 22 games.
You love to see it, right?
So that tells me that this is a team that wants to go out there and disrupt whatever their opponent's game plan is. And interestingly, they've scored 8 goals in the first 15 minutes of the second half. I don't know across how many games, but they're one of the best teams to do that too. So if they can't get that goal in the first half, they absolutely want to get it right at the beginning of the second half. Again, they want to dictate terms. They are the number 1 away team. They've done this very well. But what I've noticed is that if you can outlast them into like the 60th minute, they start to try to throw new things at you. Like or they start to kind of like slow down. Like the high octane press doesn't have enough gas in the tank. If Rhode Island FC can weather the storm and they can bend but not break,
we enjoy ourselves some good storms up here in New England.
There's a really good chance that they could frustrate this group and then get that transition goal. And if they can get the go-ahead goal before Lou scores, Lou's not really that great. They are just 1-1-1 because they only have 1 loss for the season.
So you're saying there's a chance,
but their loss came when they didn't score first. So if I look at this game as a little bit of a rope-a-dope, right? Like if they can weather this storm and hold out, kind of basically what we just saw against Charleston, there's a chance that they could find a way to beat Lou City by like using their own tactics against them.
It's a battle of attrition.
But the problem with a battle of attrition is this is the last thing we want right before an elimination round in the semifinals of the Jaeger Cup. Like if we didn't have another game until Saturday, the following week, I'd be all for it. I don't know if Kano would be willing to do that. And I also think that Kano's going to want to try to come out the gates and just score first in general and try his luck. And maybe that'll work. I don't know. But the other interesting thing here, we talk about the depth that Lou City has. They have, and they're better than anybody at it. They have 10 goals this season via substitutes, and no team even comes close. I think the next one's like 7, maybe 6. So even if they start trying to change the game plan, the people that come off the bench can find a way to score. So this is a complete team. This is why this is a test, and what they can learn from it is at least how to figure out a score. I don't have a win predicted for Rhode Island FC. I have them losing 2-1. But I think JJ gets on the score sheet. And I think what's more important here is Rhode Island FC finds a way to score against them and shows that they can make a god bleed. You can do that. You can take something into the postseason and remind them that we're not afraid of you. If you get shut out here at Centerville Bank Stadium and you don't have anything to show for it, and then we have to see them again in like an 8th versus first round playoff match, like that's not good for the psyche. So I think I would say a loss, as long as we score, is just as important as a draw. Obviously not as important as what a win could do to take this team into Jägermeister semis, but I just don't know how they get it done. This team's too good. Maybe with all this bad luck going Louis' way, we can pull it out, but then at best I've got a draw, a 1-1 draw. What do you got?
I mean, it's the hope that kills you. I don't want to also predict a loss. I'm just gonna say it's gonna be a 1-1 draw. But
I mean, 48% of people think right now Rhode Island FC is going to get this done outright. 38% believe Louisville will win. 14%
Did
will
they
think
check
it's a draw.
Wikipedia? Does it still say that we own Louisville
I
Stadium?
love when the fans change that. I love it. All right, let's wrap things up here. Coming up for this week, by the way, this piece of art from Ame Mabika, this child drawing of Ame, this needs to go in the loo immediately. Immediately. Weather right now looks tentatively delicious in the upper 70s. There was a bit of rain coming in earlier. It looks like that's now been pushed out to Sunday. But you know Rhode Island. Give it another day and we'll see what happens. But it should be a really good game, and that's great considering the fact that they are close to selling this out. I don't know why they chose a Lou match to be a sellout, considering it's not like we're I know that stat says we might be the favorites by opinion.
Maybe
but
they chose it, before we.
I would have never chosen Lou, even with all the results we've had in the past. I would have chosen Miami FC every single time, and then been punished because they were the better team. So it's interesting to see Lou City as the almost sellout here. But as a reminder, it is Kids Night, so the first 3,000 fans to the gate will receive a Kids Night rally towel. Gates open at 6:00, so don't forget to get there early. And also, because it's Kids Night, they got a couple extra things going on in the Fan Fest down by the river. Make sure you go check that out. If you've never gone and walked on that side of the stadium, it's a lot of fun. And even though you're not a child, as long as you're not in a line that's taking away from a kid, you can get an airbrush tattoo, I'm pretty sure. You can get a balloon animal if you want, Jason. So don't hesitate to do so. The game will be on Tudian and Nessun Plus and ESPN Plus, as well as 790 The Score for that 7 p.m. matchup. Little kind of thing we want to talk about really quickly. Getting into next week, we will have a show on Monday. Don't know if it's a interview. We have Ugo Bacharach lined up, but with a midweek game, we may be doing a preview really quickly of the Jägermeister Cup. I don't know, but the reason I don't know is because we will be partnering with Tide Talk, that other wonderful podcast that covers Rhode Island FC. And Tide Talk likes to do live preview matches. They were doing them last year at Providence Brewery, and this year they're trying it on now here at High Motor Grill for each of these Jägermeister games. So they do a wonderful kind of pre-game live broadcast show. They've invited us on, so we're going to be there. I'm going to be there. You might be late, right? Like, we don't know for sure if you've committed to it.
I was able to switch my shift, so I'm working earlier. The only problem is then just the commute to get there.
Gotcha.
So I might just be a few minutes late.
I'm going to need you there because I don't know if I'm going to be mentally prepared to handle Ryan Healy's genius. I need my own genius there to battle. The Matt Council will be fine, but it's going to be a lot of fun. I can't wait to partner with those guys. They do a great job over there. Make sure you give them love and listens whenever you can. So we're going to be doing a live show there, and then we'll have our regular show again on Thursday. So lots of podcasting next week, between maybe an interview, maybe a mailbag, maybe a review. We know this part is happening, though, for sure. That's the only thing I can tell you.
Oops, all podcasts.
Besides our Thursday broadcast. Jason, what's the final word of the week?
Glad to be back. Looking forward to another fun home game. Looking forward to a potential sellout, even though who knows how the game's gonna go. Always a great time hanging out with everyone. Thanks everyone for showing up again. Make sure to check out our friends over at the Blazing Musket for all of your New England soccer coverage. And that's including RIFC at theblazingmusket.com. You can follow us on Twitter, Threads, and TikTok and Blue Sky at RIFC Podcast. We have an Instagram at Raising Anchor, and there's that website you can check out, raisinganchorpodcast.com. Anchors up, y'all.